Hi guys, welcome back. Laure here. FunPlus Phoenix just won their first game of the day against a very aggressive GAM Esports. And I'm standing here with Doing Beat to talk about the game. Thank you very much for joining me. They gave you a hard time in the early game, especially playing focused on top side. Did you adapt your game playing seeing that?
首先恭喜你们赢下今天第一场比赛。那对面的话，其实花了很多的注意力在上路这一个部分，这样子。那你们在游戏中期有需要进行一些调整来适应他们的战术吗？
就是因为我们知道他们会针对上路，因为他们选了 AP 这个法师下路嘛，所以我是5楼选的嘛，所以我就选了一个能帮队友的英雄。我本来想选赛恩，但想了一下还是算了吧，所以我就选了个石头人，就一直保护我们上路发育。
I knew that they were going to focus on the top lane because they picked a mage bot lane, so I just picked something that could help out my teammates. Originally, I wanted to pick the Scion, but then I decided to go for the Malphite and help my top lane more.
Interesting. I thought about this. What did you think about the Kled last pick from GAM Esports here? Bit risky, you know?
你觉得对面就是克烈围选这个选的怎么样？
我觉得克烈选的挺不错，但可惜是因为在我面前选了，所以这个有点可惜，因为我是。 克烈 King 嘛
I think the last pick, Kled, was pretty nice, but unfortunately for them, they picked Kled in front of me, and I am the Kled King, so it didn't work out.
And it would be crazy to go against you flexing some picks like this, right? So now, you still have 2 more games to go. Who are you the most worried about?
你今天还剩下2场比赛，那你比较担心对上谁？
是因为J Team 吧，因为我们上次输给 J Team 嘛。
It has to be J Team because we lost to them last time.
And how do you know that you will win against them today?
你怎么知道你们今天对上他们会取得胜利
？JM 吗？你说那个 J Team 吗？我觉得今天的话我们会赢，因为我今天打 J Team 的时候，因为不会选那种混子英雄。
I think today that we're going to win against J Team because I'll pick a champion that doesn't play lying down, not the Scion, the carries.
Nice. Looking forward to this. Thank you very much, Doing B, for the interview. Thank you, Clement, for the translation, as always. Now back to you guys.
Thank you so much, Laure, and welcome back to the State Farm Analyst Desk. I love listening to this guy. Dude.
It's amazing. The guy's actually a consistent streamer too, so he has a few memes like Xerxe is like unfortunate. So like there's like, oh yeah, the other mid laner is having an unfortunate game.
And just browsing through Twitter, as you're wont to do during a game, and apparently he was reading his skill abilities and checking range indicators while the game was going on.
Wonder cosplay.
So a little bit of first-time Malphite maybe happened on the stage there, Raz.
He can play anything he wants. He gets a pack.
I mean, he knows Malphite very well, actually, so I'd be confused if he didn't know how to play in this game.
He's a showman, Shark.
He's a showman. Yeah, very
Easiest champion in the
I love
game.
it. Yeah, it's a fantastic player to watch as his FPX. For now, though, we are going to move on to Splyce versus J Team. And the redemption arc for the EU reps has to start here because it seems like we saw the worst of Splyce versus the LMS rep just a couple of days ago, Verius.
I feel like we've seen the 3 faces of Splyce so far in this tournament. Day 1, we saw clean, controlled, calculated play from the side of Splyce. When they went up in their second game against FPX, we saw a well-articulated plan, but the execution fumbled once you got to the mid-game due to a couple of poor decisions. But then when we saw them play against J-Team, we saw them come in with a plan that they failed to execute, and then they crumbled. They were not able to find a successful play throughout the entire game. And the problem for Splyce is we've seen no consistency. We don't know what kind of Splyce is going to show up on the day.
Yeah, specifically from Norskeren and Xerxe. That's what I need to see us from their facilitators so they can get Humanoid and Kobbe ahead. But we already saw Kobbe play one of the worst games I've seen in a very long time from him.
Yeah, and I think that the real worry here for Splyce is in their best performance. It was against a GAM comp that had no engage. It wasn't what we're used to seeing out of the Marine, so I feel like that was almost gifted to them in that first matchup. The early game from FPX was good. And I want to throw another hat into the ring because Humanoid to me is so much of a resource. He gets a lot of resources on this team, but in the mid game when you would expect your mage player to be the carry player for the team, bridging that gap, he makes so many mistakes, has the highest isolated deaths nearly at Worlds, and I think you cannot do that against a consistent team like JT.
Humanoid has been the worst performing player on this team so far at this event, and I'm very disappointed and surprised because during the regular season, he was the X factor that brought something new to this Splyce roster. He wasn't afraid to take risks. He was always in the enemy jungle looking for picks, and I feel like when we see him played during the regular season, he was someone you could rely on. But we haven't really seen that so far at this event.
And I think it's super fair to say that he needs to step up, but I think we also need to look at the people he is facing in this group specifically. We have a Doinby in there, but we also have a FoFo in this particular game, and that has been the player that's impressed us the most on J Team.
Yeah, FoFo has been on this lineup since they were the Taipei Assassins, came in as the #1 player on the ladder as a 15-year-old trainee behind legendary Singapore player Chowie there. Chowie actually ultimately gave up his spot for FoFo because he said this is a guy is the future of the organization. He's fearless, he's a very competent leader, he's very decisive in his calls, he's willing to play facilitator to start carries like Bebe, but now on this lineup, he is so much of that X Factor and that mid lane assassin.
A question then for the panel, what is there besides FoFo on this team, and what do they have going for them in order to maybe advance in this group?
The honesty is, Shocks, there isn't much else. The one game that they lost to GAM was when FoFo was shut down. When he is not able to find these picks, find these plays, this team struggles to know what to do on the map because they don't push their vision aggressively. When they have a lead, they don't try and snowball. They pretty much rely on FoFo to be the facilitator and enabler that gets things going for this team.
Two people I want to see step up in this team right now is going to be Koala and Rest. Rest is seen as one of the best top lane domestic talents in the region. He needs to be able to do that, of course, outside of laning phase. And Koala is just very active on the map, and I want to see if he can get a few picks for the team.
Yeah, and they do have star picks for those two players. We already saw Rest Gangplank. He's a very good Gangplank player, actually. I'd expect that to be banned away from him.
Yeah.
And then when you have a look at Koala, it's all about the Pike, the Nautilus, and the Thresh. These hook champions that he can free himself up and roam around. Lilv is, you know, that late game insurance policy, as we always say about these AD carries. However, I do feel like Koala, even on his time at G-Rex, was a surprisingly good support player.
And I do want to take a step back and look at what is on the line for both teams, because when we look at J Team, they have for so long been in the shadow of the Flash Wolves in that LMS region, and now they really get their chance to prove that they are worth it. In the same vein for Splyce, kind of the EU third seed that gets swept under the rug after G2 and Fnatic coming into this World Championship, who can at best get a tiebreaker to advance if they lose this game.
I mean, you summarized it perfectly, Shocks. There is an incredibly high stakes matchup. Both teams want to win to try and get out of this group, and for both of them, it would mean a huge amount to move on to the quarterfinals.
Let's hand it over to Gragas, Ender, and Azael for this all-important game.
Thank you very much, Shocks. And of course, a ton of pressure on both sides, no doubt. Kind of the weight of the LMS sitting on the shoulders of J Team. And as well, for Splyce, you talk about the pressure, and it's easy to look at veterans like Vizicsacsi and think, oh, he'll be fine. But you got to remember, this is his first Worlds.
Yeah, it's his first time here, and Splyce have always been trying to prove themselves. It started domestically, always trying to be in contention for that top 3 spot. They finally found it in the summer regular season. Now they want to be in the top 2 here in the World's group stage.
And here we go, pick and ban getting kicked off. See what the focus will be for both sides. Last time was a lane swap from Splyce, a bit of a disastrous early game. See if they can turn it around this time.
Very interesting to see J-Team actually banning out the GP for themselves, because I wouldn't have been shocked to see a GP first pick with how good Rest can be at that champion. If I'm Splyce, though, I really want to save my last pick here for Humanoid, try to protect him. He really has been struggling, and FoFo has been dominant and really crushed them last time these two teams matched.
Yeah, it's a strategy that Splyce go for a lot, because I think their drafts are fairly predictable in that they go for safe, blind, pickable options in the top lane, like the Gangplank. We've seen the Gnar taken very early for this team as well, and then they hold on to the picks to make sure they can have a really strong 2 versus 2 bottom lane, so Humanoid can have a counter. It always feels like the Splyce formula is one they go for over and over again, but that does mean that they are very predictable coming into a draft.
Now the first pick can come through. See what the priority is going to be. Jace would be an interesting one. Mixed success, of course, over the course of the tournament, but it looks like they're hovering through a number of flex. Never mind, as a team. We'll see what they're going to go for. No surprise.
Xayah coming through. Despite the fact that Rakan is already banned out, they will be going for this Xayah. Does certainly pair well up with other things too, but Nautilus and Rakan are kind of the go-to supports generally alongside this, so going to be interested to see where they want to take us, if they want to look for something a little bit more aggressive, like the Leona even that we saw Norskeren bring out before?
Yeah, I'm not personally sold on the Norskeren and Leona. I think a lot of these champions...
What about the Koala, Leona?
That I could be on board with. We'll have to see. But me, when I look at Norskeren, I actually want to see him gravitate towards something like the Thresh is, I think, something that works very well for him. Because when he's on these primary initiation champions, sometimes he just chooses the wrong moments to go in. I think Thresh gives him the ability to, like, wait, double check, does he actually want to go in on that hook, and give Splyce more fail-safe options with tools like the Lantern.
I agree. I think having the ability to disengage or engage on that support does allow him a little bit more comfort. Certainly looked out of his element in the Leona game, particularly in that dive that was really overforced.
And speaking of comfort, Xerxe getting his hands on the Gragas, but the cost is that he now has to give up the Kayle over to the side of J-Team. Has been a wonderfully powerful champion thus far in the tournament. They're going to get the Jarvan as well, but there it is. You asked for it. Splyce deliver, Ender. It is the Thresh for Norskeren.
Yep, I like this a whole lot coming through from Splyce. Has the ability to proc those plasma stacks relatively easily. Also with the Lantern, very good lane gank setup too for a champion like Xerxe, like the Gragas coming through from Xerxe into the bottom lane. And a lot of games, Splyce love to play around this 2 versus 2 in the bottom lane with initiation tools. We've seen stuff like the Veigar cage next to the Thresh in the past, and while Kai'Sa won't have that same CC, the Thresh always opens up those gank routes.
I wonder if Splyce is going to ban out Morgana. They've already taken Blitz away, which is considered a very good answer to the Thresh. So Morgana, I think, would pair well with the Xayah, be a good answer to some of the initiation here. Also works incredibly well alongside Kayle, because Kayle ultimate plus Morgana shield equals immunity to everything.
And you also have J-Team now banning away these longer range scaling options that you can take up against the Kayle later on. So I think the Tristana, that's a mid lane focused ban here. Maybe even a Corki too, something we saw Humanoid play a whole lot during the regular season, but removing the scaling outranging tools as well.
And removing the Morgana as well as predicted, Xayah. So limiting some of the more comfortable options for the bottom side of J-Team. See what Koala wants to go to. So many supports have been banned away in the draft now. 4. He's going to have to drop down the tier list a little bit to find something, but the Akali will be the final ban as we head into the next pick phase.
It could be something very defensive like the Braum if he doesn't really want to commit too heavily, but most of the common pairings really are already gone. You can go to a range support and try to bully a lane, but that always has a pretty high risk against something like Thresh plus Gragas.
Yeah, so now I'm thinking Gnar comes through from Vizicsacsi. This is one of those blind pick options we mentioned earlier. And now Splyce get to wait out. Is the Kayle definitely going into the mid laner's hands for FoFo? That's where we've seen it most throughout this tournament, definitely. But they can give that counter pick, as you mentioned, much earlier towards Humanoid.
I want to see if Rest is going to go for something aggressive. Does he bring out the Aurelia? Does he have the confidence to try to slam this Gnar in lane? Because he is sitting with counter pick right now. Kled, it can be something that works in the Gnar. It is pretty difficult because you have to hit multiple Joust Qs to be able to kind of get his jump on cooldown, and then you can maybe all in. So you have to play it really, really aggressively, and we'll see if it works out.
I mean, the potential for the double flex is there, even if it feels unlikely. If Gnar just wants to farm it on the top side, Kayle could look to match, so potentially locking that in as they feel they can put it in both positions, but the Alistar will be the final pick into the Thresh Kai'Sa lane.
I think it's going to be Kayle mid almost for sure. It can be pretty difficult playing Kayle in the long lane, especially in the early levels with ganking options like Gragas around there. So giving Kayle the defensive ability to kind of sit back, and this is one of Humanoid's champions that he's really well known for.
And you talk about late game scaling insurance, the Cassiopeia is definitely going to be there. And against all these targets that are going to be stacking a ton of HP, stuff like the Twin Fangs, Liandry's Torment alongside it is going to give you the ability to cut through the front line. That 2v2 pair of Cassio and Kai'Sa will be absolutely devastating later on in the match.
I also think it's an incredible disengage or counter-engage type tool. When you have the Kled ultimate flying in, everyone running through, you have the Norskeren box coming out from the Thresh, you have the Miasma to be able to actually slow down and block a lot of these people who are trying to dash in on top of you, the ultimate Gragas to split people up. So a lot of tools here for Splyce to absorb and then counter engage.
And to also just punish inside the laning phase. Kayle needs time to scale up. You're going to get punished every single time you walk into last hit in this laning phase. So both sides have good teamfight tools. I personally think Splyce have so many good options in disengage, engage. They've got it all.
Both teams building pretty fantastic comps. Splyce finally getting something that they should be comfortable with, and that's crucial. As they move into a game, they lose here, they will only have a chance at a tiebreaker to make it out of groups. CTBC J-Team looking at that second slot, potentially first as we move later in the day. It is do or die for these lineups. Here we go, J-Team versus Splyce. Splyce looking to tie it up, put both teams at 2-2. This J-Team will look to pull ahead. And already, it looks like there will not be a lane swap. Good news, I think, for many Splyce fans.
When I look to the top side of the map, I really do like the choice of Grasp here. Fleet Footwork actually heals you very little in the early game in these types of matchups, and really all Gnar has to do is avoid being all in, right? You're stacking up HP with this, a lot of the resolve, as well as splashing into domination here for more healing there from Taste for Blood and things like this is going to make it really tough for the Kled to all in you, and if you can't all in the Gnar, you don't really have much going on in this matchup.
Yeah, I wonder if Vizicsacsi even has the Demolish there. As a range versus melee matchup, you assume he has push advantage too, and while Gnar is pretty low range in those early levels before he does get to scale up, can look for plates in this matchup. The one thing I am a little bit concerned about for Vizicsacsi is this is a player that often receives a lot of jungle attention, but from the enemy jungler. He gets ganked a whole lot in the top lane, and if he does expose himself, I think the Jarvan at level 2 can instantly look for plays around the top side of the map.
And Bear Trap on a rope will connect, so a small but positive trade. Kled's just going to continue walking forward.
He's got Conqueror.
He's just going to keep walking him down.
He's going to come back up.
He's going to go to grab him again. Vizicsacsi flashing. Oh, just barely missing the flash. That might cost him his life. Kled now. Pocket Pistol takes him away. Conqueror still attacked. He's still healing up to a certain degree. Trying to step forward. The barrel hits. First blood. Good for Splyce, but that has to feel so bad for Rest.
It was off to such a good start for Rest as well. This guy had burned the flash from Vizicsacsi, but is late to follow. And then Xerxe is on the Raptors. Rest had made the call thinking Xerxe maybe he's on the bottom side of the map, but that was just not forward thinking. And now he's out of TP, a flash, and a kill.
Yeah, what he really had to do was pre-flash. You got to flash early so you're right on top of him. So even if he flashes, then you can actually pull him back. And I think you get that first blood if you early flash.
Or, and hear me out, Azale, don't flash into the fog of war when you don't know where the enemy jungler is.
I think you can actually not die. If you go in, if you pre-flash, I think you have the possibility of killing that Gnar. And I don't think that a jungler can solo kill you before you can remount.
Yeah, I mean, if he remounts, yeah, he definitely turns that around.
And all I'll say is, I respect the aggressive option. I respect the aggressive flash forward. It just has to feel bad to miss out on that one. But it's good that
you want to leave the game right now.
Yeah. You're like, all right, guys, that was
remake. Anyone getting that lag?
Weird bug on stage happened where I just looked really dumb for a second. That's not supposed to happen.
On the bright side, Rest has now won the jungle matchup for his team because Hana's able to run in for the red
making space.
Yeah, he's making space for his jungler. Right? It's a genius play. No, Hana had actually gone for a clever path where he cleared the top side of his jungle, and most teams would assume then the Jarvan passed towards bottom side, but looked for a gank himself. There was a ward that spotted him out, but because Xerxe skipped over his red buff, which he likes to do a lot because he values getting the experience of the Krugs and Raptors so quickly, he almost died to those Krugs, so he had to give up that red.
And as we look away from the top side, I think important to highlight once again that both of Splyce's carries are kind of set up for success this time in the matchup versus J-Team, because last time we saw this matchup, it was a very, very difficult game for both Kobbe and Humanoid. And when you compare their effectiveness to that of FoFo's LeBlanc, we see FoFo outmatching in damage. Oh, hold that thought.
This would be bold.
Hook does connect. Root is there, locked up under tower. Norskeren, is it going to happen again? He's so incredibly low. Won't be able to get anything else. Norskeren just barely able to survive.
Koala didn't get his Ignite off, or that's probably a kill. He was actually so low, I think he would have gone down there, but Koala not quite able to get the summoner out in time. And Splyce, I mean, what is that dive? That's just
ambitious.
So ambitious.
Yeah, Xerxe,
that's a kind way to put it.
Yeah, it's definitely a kind way to put it, because I don't think you're ever getting a kill right there with all summoners available. Maybe you can zone them away from the tower, but now Norskeren and Kobbe have to play super, super carefully because Hana has sort of split the map now, and Xerxe relatively low on mana. I don't actually think the 3v3 is all that favorable for Splyce, but they do have the heal advantage.
And we look at it, Koala still has Ignite. Norskeren's only alive because Koala did not push Ignite in that play, but maybe they're trying to just lock him down. Hana, Rest coming through, TP onto the bottom side. The Alistar just going to knock him back, a good headbutt to pull away. Lilv going to look to set up it up. Koala will drop in the end. Good TP from Humanoid.
And you were right, Ender. 3v3 wasn't that good, but they had the TP coming through here from the mid lane, and it's not as though Kayle can look to match that. You really don't offer anything to the play, even if you do come in. So great job here by Splyce, getting an early kill for Cassio.
And now, even though Xerxe was, invaded and lost his red buff, he's coming immediately over with that mid lane pressure he has, because Humanoid walked straight back there. So he is able to steal those Raptors. Double check if he actually got them. He did end up getting those, I do believe.
And now checking in, Humanoid happy to have that tier early on. You can see FoFo taking a more defensive path.
Yeah, so he did just leave one of those Raptors. That's why it looked that way on the map. Now here, Norskeren actually holds his hook for such a long time, so it ends up missing on towards Hana, so they can't get that initial kill. But Koala, who didn't have a flash, has to use the headbutt there to proc the aftershock and try to stay alive, but there's no real way you can escape from a Cassiopeia at that point in the game once Humanoid lands the Q, because with all that movement speed, he's just going to run you down.
And it was just a well-orchestrated play there from Splyce, knowing they had the teleport, having the deep ward, being able to bait in this play, and Koala no flash is going to get punished for it, but in the meantime, FoFo had been farming it out. He is actually going Merc Treads here, trying to deal with some of the CC, and you can see some of the struggles that Humanoid really has been having. And this is, remember, 15th out of 16 mid laners in this, so he's actually tied for the most deaths, most ISO deaths. I believe it's actually with Niski.
Yeah, you look at it too, he's having a super heavy impact in the early game. And that's sort of the Splyce story where they do have successful early games, just like you can see with Humanoid on the screen, but it's then getting caught out in transition because Splyce will often fan out to 3 lanes in the mid game, and then those people farming in side lanes don't have the vision support, they overextend, and teams are able to punish them consistently. That's why their early leads usually don't transition into quick finishes because, quite frankly, they get picked way too much.
But now they've got the early start once again. So as we look towards the mid game, look for them to turn it around. But for Humanoid, has to be careful here. Kayle ulti, of course, up and available. And J4 waiting around. Could potentially fish for a dive. They're very difficult against the Petrifying Gaze. Good dash out. Vizicsacsi on the top side. Going even for now in the matchup as the Ninja Tabby come out quite early.
And despite the really quick start here for Hana, he's still level 4, and it's past 7 minutes into the game, so really does need to pick up some of this farm. We have seen his Raptors taken away, now he just lost his blue buff there to Xerxe, and Xerxe's going to get the jump here.
Humanoid, though, taking a lot of damage. Xerxe, smooth body slam over the wall to get away from the flag and drag there.
Quick moves out of Xerxe, but as you said, he does have that level lead, and that's going to come down to the efficiency in his pathing. Even though he did lose the red buff, he got the camps that mattered most. He was able to walk in, steal away the enemy Raptor camp too, so he will be spotted out here on this ward, but I think Xerxe is on the path now towards level 6, and should be looking to use that soon. Humanoid's real low.
But this is a level 4 jungler. Like, you could die so fast if you actually mess this up.
They do have Kayle ult, but no flash on Hana.
And I just have to wonder if Jarvan could be spending his time better somewhere else. There's just no camps up and available. He's so very far behind in terms of experience.
I mean, he's now setting up to try and invade onto this red buff. But again, he's at a 2-level deficit. Maybe he could smite that away, but then you immediately lose the ensuing fight. A little surprised to see Xerxe not walk in there. He knows he doesn't have mid lane pressure because Humanoid had to go to base, so he makes the decision. He'll take even more EXP off that mid lane wave and give up this red once again.
And honestly, just very fortunate for Hana that he is able to take away this red buff, that he is able to grab this buff, get to level 5, still woefully behind the Gragas. Both these champions need that level 6 to be at maximum efficiency.
Yeah, he just hit 5. Xerxe is sitting at about 6.5, 6 2/3 or so. So certainly quite a bit ahead already. And he has his flash available. His Predator is going to be coming up here pretty shortly. He has the ultimate, so he has all of his playmaking tools to really try to go and make something happen on the map.
Yeah, Xerxe's got an 800 gold lead at the moment too. One thing he likes to do is go for very early bases and then stay on the map until he can actually finish off his first jungle item. Not necessarily looking for the ganks, but looking for that big spike. Now he will be resetting while Hana does have the ability to play a little bit more aggressive. And this is one of the weaknesses with how Xerxe does path, is that oftentimes on these later Scuttle Crab spawns, he doesn't have the itemization to actually go and contest. But there you see it now, the Runic Echoes. This is when he looks to fight. Looking towards the mid lane now with Norskeren being the first support off the reset. They time these recalls together so they can try to make a play. Whether that's a kill or just vision remains to be seen.
Now, Humanoid has pressure in the mid lane. Norskeren will be spotted out, but the Gragas still remains an unknown factor. Pink's coming in, so looks like he will be able to play a bit more aggressively from FoFo. He knows exactly where the enemies are. Has to still be careful, though. Past the level 6 point, so he is ranged now, but can't really afford to approach the Cassio too aggressively with the Thresh kind of waiting in the darkness here, looking to go for a play. Ulti. Humanoid continues to push forward, and FoFo very patient on the Kayle ult there.
Even though they did spot the jungler, they've cleared out so much of this vision now, it's pretty difficult to actually face check into the Thresh, into the Cassio, so Splyce will just take this dragon, and J-Team really have no ability to even try to actually contest it.
I mean, this is where Splyce are completely in their element. When it's these set plays around the 10-minute mark, they decided, look, we had the resets, we timed them together so Xerxe and Norskeren could be back on the map first. That meant J-Team's jungler, support, bot lane, they were late to return back onto the map. So as this red side team that has a very easy time walking into that bot side river, they can quickly pick up that Drake and now have all the vision control too to deny plays around that bottom side of the map.
And the gold tells such a clear story at this stage of the game. How comfortably Splyce are in the lead. It's not massive leads across the map, but it is leads across the map. And for Splyce, the one game that they've won so far in this group has looked a lot like this game. Very controlled, very steady. That might change though. Humanoid moving in. Jarvan, careful, trying to fish forward. They will get the Cassio out. Xerxe still going to go, but no. A beautiful stopwatch to deny it there. The barrel, not quite enough. A sliver of health ticking down for FoFo.
Humanoid used the Q a split second too early there, so the poison not there to finish off FoFo. But they do get the stopwatch to get the ultimate. A lot of major cooldowns burned there by FoFo to survive.
And the fallout from this play could be that top lane or bottom lane have to sacrifice a wave. You can see right now Koala pushing for a reset because they don't know where the duo of Splyce is going. Both side lanes have to be very, very careful, and Humanoid can teleport in towards this top side play.
Xerxe zooming up to the top side of the map. The ward comes down. He'll spot the Gragas out, but that is one very fast fat man running in. Are they going to fish for the play? The Kled all going to try to use to escape, but you walk right into Xerxe, and Humanoid's here too. A second clutch TP from Humanoid, and it looks like that's just going to be it for Rest.
That's just a great teleport and a nice setup again here from Splyce. Being able to use this Cassio for early proactive plays is not something you often can do.
Now the question is, can J-Team stop
They
this? They're going on!
A lot of damage. They're just trying to knock Humanoid out the flash out to safety, but it will not be enough. That is the shutdown. Koala going to grab it. A little bit awkward, but happy to have the kill.
I remember this exact same play happening to Splyce in the regular season, where they go top lane after the 10-minute mark, they get the kill, and then they walk into the river, but they don't respect the possibility for the enemy team to be there. They jump on Humanoid and get that kill. And because Splyce's dual lane had gone for the reset and not pathed up into the top side, well, Norskeren and Kobbe aren't there to help in this situation. So the initial play is fantastic from Splyce, but they aren't aware of all those moving pieces and they get punished for it.
Yeah, so if this is one more time, honestly, no way out for Kled at that point. It's just too well set up. Xerxe comes in, he's corralling him, he's standing there, he drops the ward immediately for the Cassio TP. But this is that overextension that you're talking about, not tracking the resets from the opposing team. Humanoid walking forward, trying to get some vision, but not understanding that they could have already been there. And they just pile in on him, getting the shutdown and denying the Rift Herald from being taken.
And this is where the snowball, gets slowed down a little bit because, they had a big gold lead, all their lanes winning out in CS, they get the early kills, but because they can't find that Herald, especially before the 14-minute mark, now they don't get the extra money off of plates. Now their plays are going to be stunted a little bit and they have to wait maybe for another teleport from Humanoid before they can really get it going again.
It's definitely not the best, but Vizicsacsi still quite ahead, very comfortable in this matchup, really ever since level 1 when Rest kind of had that failed level 1. Wasn't able to get the flash follow. He has just been put on the back foot, and this is a matchup where you are forever on the back foot unless you can all in, and his kind of time to do that has passed. So now Rest is going to be less efficient in the side lanes, and honestly, Kled, who's behind, is not very good in team fights either.
You can initiate, but you can't do a whole lot more after that. You can try to waste time, but realistically, Splyce have such good turn. We talked about it in the draft, the Cassiopeia and Kai'Sa. As a backline, it's always going to be super, super potent. Now Splyce, they are going back towards the Rift Herald. No marksmen, no bot laners can actually show up into this fight, and it's just going to be a free objective.
Easy for Splyce to take. They've got the pressure in the mid lane and the pressure on the top side. They can move into that one uncontested. J-Team, though, not going to let it go down without getting something else. They are now set up on the bottom side of the map. You can see that Kobbe does have to back off here, but it's all plates on the top side for Vizicsacsi. He can push in all solo as the Herald drops, and that's everything top side going in the favor of Splyce.
Yep, nice demolish proc there from Chachi. Now, J-Team have completely given up on the top side map. Look at all the vision control down bottom side. Control wards all the way down the river too, just to be able to trade for this tower down bottom side. But I really like the response here from Splyce to drop the Herald down mid lane when no one is here to defend. They can break this tower open while J-Team are caught putting pressure down bottom side. This is going to be huge.
Breaking mid so incredibly crucial. The Lantern comes out, but it's not going to stop the Kled. He is unstoppable. He does manage to get onto the Cassio, but dashes immediately to safety, anticipating the petrifying gaze. And that's just not going to result in much of anything. Stops the tower from dropping, though. Crucial for Rest to stop that play.
It's a little bit of zoning, but it's not like there was any follow-up even possible, right? The rest of the squad is on the other side. His AD is still in the bottom lane. even if he got straight on top of Humanoid, I don't think they really have the ability to take him down there.
It just feels like trying to buy space for the mid lane tower, making sure that it will not drop, because we know how much easier it's going to be for Splyce to play this game out once they do manage to break that mid lane open.
And J-Team would rather trade the Drake by losing the ultimate on rest. They're not really looking to contest on that objective. They're much more willing to lose the Ocean Drake than they are that outer mid lane tower because of all its importance.
And at this stage of the game, it's going to get a little bit harder for J-Team. We've seen that one clever pick punishing Humanoid. Maybe need to fish for a few more here. Because as you mentioned, while the gold isn't too far apart, the game does get harder as we move later on.
2,500 is not an insignificant gold lead at 15 minutes into the game.
I'm going to be honest, I could not read that from this distance. I thought it said 2,300. I did not bring my glasses today.
Well, it's pretty good gold lead, right? And they've gotten a number of turret plates. The only turret plates that J-Team took, you can see they got no gold for. So they weren't actually in range. That means that they probably went down to minions or they hit it and then backed off. You know, weren't really able to collect any of that, so didn't get anything from it.
Here we go. And Xerxe, of course, building ever closer towards the Zanyas. It's going to allow him to make very aggressive plays. And you can see both supports focusing around this mid lane. A lot of all-in potential with the Thresh Cassio as well as the Kayle Alistar on the opposite side.
One thing we always have to consider when we look forward in towards these team fights is that Splyce, they don't necessarily have to hard force with their spells that do engage. You have the Gragas barrel, you have hooks. You don't necessarily have to throw your body into the fight where you can't disengage. Whereas J-Team, they absolutely must. Yes, they have tanky tools, but a Jarvan, once he's in the fight, he is in the fight. Same goes for Alistar, same for Kled. So when they are playing at a deficit, J-Team must be absolutely sure of these fights they take. They know they must have a numbers advantage or, you know, be able to find that perfect flank. Otherwise, you're going to be jumping into a whole lot of stats that you just can't make up for in the gold.
And then it feels like it's all eyes on FoFo, which for J-Team I think is no strange place to be, but the Kayle ultimate's going to be crucial for a lot of these champions who want to go in, even when at a deficit, and can be, alongside the Xayah, a massive source of damage if they play out the team fights correctly.
If you can get the Kled ulting in on top of Kobbe or Humanoid with the Kayle ult, that becomes pretty disruptive, right? You have this squishy champion on top of you dealing damage, and AP Kayle ultimate does a lot of damage as you get later into the game. You pick up more and more AP. It can get up to 300, 400, 500 damage and does become pretty significant when you're looking for that 100-0 type potential.
I actually think that because of the Kayle on J-Team's side, this is one of the games where when you're playing Gragas, you're not actually using the barrel to engage, but rather disengage. Now TP behind.
Here comes the TP. Kobbe not going to be able to walk back to the Lantern, but the Kled will not find an ult. Xerxe caught in the middle of the entire team. He's going to grab it there perfectly right as it's about to time out, but now they have to flash, they have to retreat, but they're locked up in the Cataclysm. FoFo going to be allowed to free fire the feathers. They're going to be pulled back, and Norskeren going to go down. Still has the cooldown. Can still pull them back. The knockup is there. Vizicsacsi slowly but surely moving towards the Gnar, but he might not have time. Damage is coming in.
He's got Mega!
There it is. 2 into the wall, and Vizicsacsi sends a message to J-Team. They want to continue the fight. The feathers are pulled back. Humanoid's in trouble. The Kled goes in, and he goes right back out. J-Team still alive in the fight. On the retreat now. Vizicsacsi can't chase down. Still Mega. Mini will come out, but a very even fight, all things considered.
Really close fight. It could have been so much better for J-Team, but they lost track of Chachi going Mega there. They had all their eyes on Humanoid, who was getting very low and wanted to try to pile in and kill him, but that allowed Chachi to get that perfect Mega Gnar.
Yeah, he absolutely did, and it turns into a team fight win overall. It's 2 for 2, but the tower goes the way of Splyce. You see this from the start. I think Xerxe plays it really well to try and escape here, kiting away so it doesn't look like he wants to pick up the Lantern. But then watch Norskeren. He misses the hook, which basically is a self-inflicted CC to set up for this 3-man ulti on towards Hana, who also gets the Kayle ult on top, so he can't go down.
Now watch J-Team's carries try to step forward, turn back, step forward, turn back, avoid that ultimate. Now it's used, they're saying, all right, go for Humanoid. They try to charge through, and they just lost track of Chachi there. As soon as the Cassio ult was out, they thought the fight was theirs.
I mean, FoFo is frontlining on a Kayle who used his ultimate on the tank Jarvan to get in towards that start of the fight, so could have definitely been a big win for them. Now J-Team still down in gold overall. We mentioned the tower went the way of Splyce there, so I do like the idea there from J-Team. We talked about how they had to be absolutely sure about the fights that they do initiate. That was definitely one that was in their favor, but they have to still be very, very vigilant of the items coming through, especially now that Humanoid has that Rylai's Crystal Scepter. It becomes even more difficult to turn and run away from a bad fight that you take.
Especially with Phase Rush, right? You're able to kite back, you're able to chase forward and try to secure a lot of these kills, but we do need to see Norskeren being on point, because that fight also could have been even more in the favor of Splyce had they played that a little bit better. But here comes the engage again.
That's the tower defense ulti. We've seen this before from Rest.
Seems appropriate. Just wants to take a break there in the mid lane. We'll stop Splyce from pushing in for more. And while the gold lead definitely in the favor of Splyce, 3K, this team, Vizicsacsi is really the big thorn in the side right now for J-Team, because while most of the team can match Splyce, can stop them from pushing in for more, they can't stop Vizicsacsi as well. And this top lane tier 1 will not be a worthwhile trade for the bottom tier 2 as Splyce just look to continue to extend their lead.
Well, it's really interesting because J-Team clearly had done their research, because we saw Koala walk all the way in towards Splyce's topside jungle, trying to sit and wait to find a pick on an individual Splyce member that went to farm side lanes. We talk all the time about how Splyce do get picked like that in the mid game, but this time Splyce much more coherent on that call, decide let's just split the map right down the middle. We'll trade for that second tier bot lane tower, pick up a Drake on top of it, and just lose that top lane tower as the only loss.
And I think what J-Team can try to do is have the Kayle matching Gnar, which is totally fine. But at this point, it feels like they're willing to actually just let the Kled get more behind in lieu of getting that Kayle ahead, right? They want to really put all the gold into the Kayle, get the solo turret gold, get all the experience, because they're saying, all right, all the eggs are in the Kayle basket at this point. Just allow this Kled to be an ultimate, to be a way into the fight, and not much else.
And most of the gold lead for Splyce is in the hands of Vizicsacsi in terms of individual matchups, with J-Team funneling the gold into their respective carries. So a lot of eyes on him to be the Mega Gnar in the fight, to make sure when that engage comes in, he has the perfect answer for all those champions who want to dive forward. Hana, though, has to be careful. The hook will not connect. Splyce now just taking control of this river, taking control of the area around the pit. They have a Mountain Drake, they have a Cassio, they have a Kai'Sa. Very easy for them to threaten the Baron with this composition.
Yeah, Splyce just waiting for their flashes to come back up for the big Gragas.
Ult goes out, but it's not going the right way. The Kled is going to get hooked. Good body block coming in from Rest. Could have been a disaster, but now pressure in the mid lane. Splyce still not able to break down the tier 1 mid.
Splyce really throwing a lot in there to catch out Lilv, are able to burn his ultimate. Now that he doesn't have the flash, it becomes very risky for him to position forward on the map. Now, one thing that our European Cassiopeias like to do is go side lanes. We've seen it from Nemesis, now Humanoid too, because Cassio wins basically every single 1-versus-1 matchup, especially the more items you get on this pick. She just drains down single targets. So something that J-Team need to look out for is that side lane matchup, because even FoFo with some items I think is going to struggle. So they need to either isolate that matchup and be able to find a pick with Hana or Koala, or just keep dodging it around and only pick up the minions as they crash into tower.
And vision control will be so important for Splyce to ensure that it is a 1v1. Because if you push up too far in that side lane and all of a sudden Kled is coming through with an Alistar and multiple members, then you really can get knocked down. Especially when you're playing top side of the map like Humanoid, because they're not even far away from that Baron.
It is Vizicsacsi, Mega Gnar on the way. Tries to use the Randuins to slow down the opposition there. But his threat from the side, as well as the Gragas barreling forward, does mean that they will finally break tier 1 mid. This is going to open up a lot of options for Splyce.
Splyce showing they're tracking the cooldowns, because Lilv's flash was just seconds away from coming up as they made that crash through. They knew they had burnt Lilv's ultimate on the previous play. The cooldown on Mega Gnar lower than that of Xayah, especially after those nerfs. So now they're able to take a lot more control, potentially look for a bit more.
Some pretty important items have come through, though, for J-Team. You can see both Kayle and Xayah are on 2 items now and are going to be markedly stronger than they have been before. Heavy amounts of AD on this Xayah. The Kayle is getting a lot of CDR. The healing starts to ramp up. The damage on the ultimate also. So if you can execute on the fight properly, J-Team does have ways to win.
Chachi's just poking for Mega Gnar charge right now, and they're always going to have Norskeren sitting in that bush, waiting for a hook. One good hook lands, you can find the initiation.
Wasn't that one, but now the team has control of the mid lane. As Vizicsacsi gets closer and closer to filling that rage bar, J-Team eventually will be forced to back off. Cannot risk getting all in on, but still Hana going to go in for the fight there. Norskeren caught out in the Cataclysm, is forced to flash to safety, misses the follow-up hook, and now suddenly it's Vizicsacsi in the midst of the entire team. Rage bar slowly but surely stacking up. Mega Gnar could be a problem now for J-Team. Have they tried to start a fight that they cannot win? That's one knocked to the wall, but the feathers pull back. Vizicsacsi will get taken down, and FoFo does not drop on the side of the fight. J-Team for now are in the lead. It's Alistar manages to make it out to safety. Goes over, trying to get a little bit more. The dismount comes in. Humanoid, there does so much damage. They have to be careful. That's going to be the petrifying gaze. You're looking for one more, but it might not be enough. Lilv needs to get more damage down in the fight. 2 have dropped. Splyce are turning the fight. A good flash from FoFo, but Splyce will find it in the end.
And on the side of that fight, Norskeren had a sick play to pull Hana out of his flag and drag that would have got him on top of Humanoid and perhaps allowed them to get that kill. They are on the Baron here. Koala is low, but they know it's going down.
Burning faster and faster. FoFo walks up to the pit, but it will not matter. That is Baron for Splyce. They are firmly in control of this game.
Humanoid did so much work in that team fight. Great stuff coming through from him. because at the start, it did not look good at all here for Splyce, but he's able to turn it around, finish off his 3rd item after the fight. All eyes on this player at his first international event too, because you can see in this play, it starts off with J-Team really good engage after they see the rest of Splyce split up.
It was a great sidestep from Hana, and you're going to see Chachi just getting a little bit overconfident here. He comes out of that stopwatch and he wants to go forward. Lilv's reactions were fantastic though. If he actually landed that Mega Gnar onto Lilv, maybe it looks differently, but you can see the Splyce carries couldn't even enter the fight. Humanoid's on the side, Kobbe's on the other side, kind of zoned out by some of these members and not able to really find it. Now watch this play from Norskeren here.
Yeah, he landed the hook at the start to stop Hana from taking that EQ in, and then of course that zoning tool right there with the hook as well forces another flash out of FoFo too. So in that team fight, Norskeren showing up, and now on the Thresh, he's got himself a Shirelia's Reverie, so he wants to get the whole crew involved in the next fight and be able to close the gap.
Such a powerful tool to allow him to reposition. The Kled ulti is so telegraphed. You can say, oh, we're fighting in a pinch. How about not anymore? We'll zoom the entire team right out, and it will no longer be a threat. Humanoid so far ahead now, quite easy for Cassio to solo this Drake, and J-Team are in full survival mode. All they can do is hold on. It's a 6K deficit in a bear, and they just have to try as best as they can not to lose too much.
Yeah, Kobbe now has the Gnasher's Tooth completed, so he should be sitting at the triple evolve. That's a wasted ult there from Humanoid, really trying to find that kill, but Splyce now, 1minute and 40 seconds without that tool that should stop their ability to siege down towers, and they don't actually have a wave to work with right now. Chachi not getting a lot of attention thrown up towards his side, so that wave should fizzle out and they should play for mid.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if they're just going to wait for Chachi or if they are going to head up to that top side. I would like them to just kind of push in multiple waves, but they're actually looking for a dive here on a FoFo.
Ult available, but I don't think he's going to get a chance to use it. Is now using it, but it might be too little too late. The Kled now coming in. FoFo goes down. The Kled stuck in this fight. He can't get out even if he wants to. The hook lands from Norskeren, and he's going to have to retreat. He's going to get demounted here, but the pocket pistol will take him to safety.
And now Splyce, they've got the Baron buff, they got everything they needed. Another wave comes on through, and with FoFo down, that's so much of J-Team's damage completely void. You have Kobbe split pushing in mid lane as well. So Splyce, in a situation where it looked like this Baron wasn't going to amount to much, have now cracked open everything besides those inhibitor towers.
And I think they can get the inhibitor towers here also. FoFo's still dead for a good 15 more seconds. Kobbe is already dealing damage to this one. Humanoid on the other side too.
But pulverized, they can't fully commit. They don't really have any follow-up damage here. Lilv not able to move into the mid lane, and FoFo is currently dead. They have time. They have the minions. They should be able to break the base. J-Team, what can they do to respond? Just forced off of this tower. There's so much damage that they can't leap face first into a Cassio.
And Splyce now, they've got the Gragas cask up as well, so they can push J-Team away from this tower. They can take yet another tower if they want to use that spell. Hook barely doesn't connect, but this another structure is falling down. J-Team can't do anything.
Mega Gnar slowly but surely starting to stack. He has a minion wave there to beat him. If he wants to double jump, he can fish for it. Vizicsacsi just going to bounce right in. Lands it on two, and Splyce now trying to clean up the fight, desperate to get something back. But both the carries, no, one going down. FoFo is dead. It's all eyes on Lilv, but it's just not going to be enough. Xayah, the pull through the feathers. He cannot do it in the end. A heartbreaker for Lilv and a triple kill for Humanoid.
A great initiation from Xerxe, and even better Gnar from Vizicsacsi, jumping straight into the base and getting another one for Splyce.
A dominant finish to the game from Splyce. From start to finish, it was a clean game, a few trades back and forth, but Splyce will tie themselves up with J-Team 2-2, and Splyce are looking to get out of this group.
And on the elimination day, when it really matters most, Splyce turned in their best game of the tournament, looking dominant here over J-Team, who is considered by many to be one of the favorites to get out of this group.
Especially after Splyce's loss to them too. Splyce came in, didn't try any one of those level 1 shenanigans. They put Humanoid and Kobbe on the big carries. They got the comfort for Vizicsacsi in the top lane. This was a tried and true Splyce draft. They played it how they needed to. They didn't fall into those mid-game problems that we've seen from them in the past, and they closed it out with very clean team fighting.
And critically, Humanoid had a big game for Splyce, and we all were saying if he can step up in week 2, Splyce can get out of this group. Splyce can look so much better. But I've also got to say, looking over at the other side for J-Team, I hated the Gnar pick. Or rather, I hated the Kled pick into the Gnar. It just never was able to get anything done. And if you're not going to be able to play to that side of the map, if you're not going to play aggressively, the pick does nothing really for you. It gave them some engage, but
it stopped them from taking mid once or twice with ultimates, but really a heartbreaker for J-Team when they could have been 3-1. They could have been tied up with FPX, and now to turn around to be at 2-2 is you're in the danger zone. you have to find every win. There is no comfortable berth at the end of this one.
Look, J-Team, they went for the scaling options. They said, Splyce, that team can't close out on us early enough, but through the early game teleports and playmaking of Humanoid and, a much stronger mid game than we are used to seeing from this team, Splyce erased a lot of those issues and sort of laughed at J-Team for going for the prepped route, for going for that late game draft.
And the patience from Splyce in the late game, they knew that they had to win in the bag as long as they didn't overforce, so they let J-Team come to them. The second that opportunity pops up, you see beautiful Gnars coming in left and right from Vizicsacsi. A really big team effort across the board. But for a breakdown of that game, let's hear from the State Farm analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Gragas. There we go. Okay, I'll wait till the camera looks at Verius because he's doing something. A snack thing, I think.
Snakes have arrived! Splyce is back in this group. Told you, you doubted. You doubted.
I did.
You doubted, but Splyce came to play. I wrote in my notes.
Wait. Can someone remember what you said about GAM Esports and how
I had
passionate
to
you
for
were?
that segment. I had to for that segment. Listen, in my notes, I wrote, Humanoid is the key. You probably can't write it, but Humanoid is the key. This was the man that we needed to step up today. They gave him the Cassio, and I think that he had a fantastic performance.
Well, I agree, and I think then when we look at the Cassio and the rest of the composition, Splyce really said we want to be comfortable in this game and have the best possible champions to get this win.
Yeah, so I think the only adjustment I would have made would be a Rise because you wanted a little bit more mobility. If I looked at J-Team and said, okay, you have the Kayle, J4, and Kled. Good luck. That snake was going to die, but that was never the case. I think a lot of it came down to two members. Well, two things. One member being Vizicsacsi. His Kled, or at least his Gnar, was incredible.
Keep confusing the two.
His Gnar was insane, and another thing was I think a lot of the team fights from J-Team were a little bit butchered.
Yeah, they certainly were. However, I think you have to look at how this setup was going to always be. You have Cassiopeia, who's a pushing lane, and you have Gnar, who should be a pushing lane. That means you should control the side of the map, which Splyce were able to do, and make them fight into fog of war every single time. When that is the case, you're going to lose a lot of these team fights. So credit to Splyce on their mid-game execution. This time it was clean.
Speaking about fog of war, there were some early kills, of which namely the first one was a bit iffy from the side of J-Team, and Splyce got off to an early or a good start rather because of it.
This was clearly a pre-planned strategy from Vizicsacsi.
Yeah.
Definitely not a massive mistake that could have cost him first blood. If it weren't for Xerxe starting on the top side of the map, this could have ended in disaster.
I actually think if Rest early flashes there's no way to get out of tether range. You just die, remount, and walk away. However, that wasn't going to be the case. And then everything got a little bit funny. This looked like a huge misexecution from Splyce. However, Humanoid once again swooping in to save the day.
I'm glad you said it though, because even though Vizicsacsi and Humanoid and the other members had a good game, I still think there's things they need to shore up. But I don't think we should feel too comfortable if you're an EU fan for what we've seen. But the fact of the matter is that they just had to get this win, and they executed to get it, and that is the most important takeaway.
Yeah, I think execution is the key, because when we think to the last time they met, Swan and I were watching the game earlier, they tried to lane swap, they tried an early tower dive, and all of their early game plans just fell through. But this time, we saw all of the plays work out. The early TP bot from Humanoid resulted in a kill. The TP top resulted in a kill. And because Splyce had a firm control over the early game, they were able to keep the pressure up and maintain a good mid-game where they were not making the same mistakes that they've made so far in the group stage.
However, the atmosphere when we were talking amongst ourselves watching the game was that, ooh, that Kayle is scaling up, that Xayah is scaling up. So where do you think J-Team could have taken more advantages in terms of scaling up their comp?
So I think they had great windows. J-Team had a pretty good team fight mid. I think that execution on that, it was only based off of them wanting to go further or playing towards the Cassiopeia. Essentially, it was like, great, you got a great pick, but then you keep moving and you don't really plan yourself ahead. So I think J-Team basically kept trying for more things and it weren't working out.
I think one of the big issues that J-Team had was that they often rely on FoFo to be the initiator, to be the one deciding when to go and when not to go. But when you're on that Kayle, you're kind of relying on everyone around you to set up the play for you to follow. And we saw that J-Team, without that leader in the mid lane, tend not to do a huge amount. And a lot of the plays they tried to force were few and far between.
I mean, what we saw so far is that top lane died level 1, didn't have teleport, didn't have flash. So all of a sudden, you're not pushing through that lane. Bottom lane just got teleported on level 3, they die. So you're not pushing through bottom lane. Mid lane, you're playing Kayle. So there is actually no avenue on this game for the Jarvan to be able to play through. And that just gave Xerxe a level and a half lead in experience.
Yeah.
He was so far ahead and set the tempo of this game. I think that that was just a really botched early game that meant no flashes burnt when it's coming to these critical team fights, that they're always going to have an advantageous position to be able to take them.
Yeah, Xerxe was very, very far ahead. We're going to take a look at a fight bot lane. It ended up being a 2-for-2, but still Splyce came out slightly ahead. If the execution was somewhat better, this would have been a wipe.
So this is one of the better plays that we saw from J-Team. There could have been a huge opportunity for them. If it weren't for a couple of mis-executions on their behalf, this could have been their window to then bounce back into the game. Unfortunately for J-Team, they overcommit to the fight. And one of the things that I think Cassio does offer in this comp is the re-engage tool. So that every time the enemy team tries to hard commit, you have that ultimate to turn it around.
Because that was a one fight that then was re-engaged by J-Team. And you can see that they do try and mop up some kills on the back end, but they're burning important resources like flashes to be able to do so. This was just consistent overreaches after the initial pick that probably shouldn't have happened.
And to me, this is the clearly the best game from Vizicsacsi I've seen this tournament, because this is one of the great examples on which is Gnar ultimate paid in dividends that they can back up. We also saw a mid lane fight earlier on, this wasn't a great example of it, where that Mega Gnar proved dividends being able to pick up that outer turret.
However, this is a bit of an int from Chachi. Let's call it what it is. He dies. And look, another one team fight. You don't have to continue to fight. You've got the Kayle, you've got the Xayah. Just be content scaling up. And this is where Fog of War becomes a big thing, because Norskeren over the wall just ruins Hana's day.
Yeah, and I think the Humanoid, while overcommitting for Koala, actually set up the team to be able to follow up and find a bunch of kills, which then resulted in the Baron for Splyce. And then utilizing that Baron, they were very clean. They pushed in as a group. They didn't overforce. And this is exactly what EU fans wanted to see from Splyce. The potential that they could perform at was definitely there.
We had question marks about Humanoid. He is the oppo player of the game in this one, but I want to look forward now in this group for both Splyce and J-Team. Splyce, a win, but it can be cleaned up, I think, in some degree. And then J-Team, who we've seen promise from, what do they need to do to advance? You were the J-Team proponent at the beginning of the show, so what should you say to the team?
So for J-Team, they're not going to have much time to really talk about this, because the Marines, I mean, they just have to play right now too, so that's going to be a short turnaround. Just calm down, because against the Marines, you really just have to play the same style you've had throughout, where you're just playing a more calm and tempered play, and you should be able to pick up that win, have a lot of time thinking about your next match, because you have some time now. You have FPX being the last match of the game, the day.
And I mean, for Splyce, just more of that. You've got 3 teams in this group that probably will fight you, so take the mid-game team fighting comps and continue to execute well. Once again, it wasn't a flawless win, but that's enough to be able to get you out of that group, I feel.
I want to see FoFo on early to mid-game champ that can have a stronger impact early on, because it feels to me that J-Team is not the most proactive team. They don't try and force a lot early. So if you put more resources into FoFo, there's a good chance that you can challenge the likes of GAM and FPX.
Still everything left to be played for in this one. And for more on that win from Splyce, Lilv got up with Splyce's victorious coach.
Thanks, guys. Lilv here, and joining me right now is Duke after Splyce's first victory for the second round robin. Thank you very much for joining me. I think that first round robin didn't go as expected, so how are you satisfied right now with the performance they had today, and are you relieved for the rest of the day?
I'm definitely not relieved for the rest of the day, because we still have a long way to go, but I'm satisfied of how we played. I think maybe our best game so far. Good early game, good mid game, clean fight decision, which was lacking against FPX, that we worked a lot since then. Of course, I'm not satisfied losing against FPX. That was really a free win. Not satisfied losing it to J-Team. I think they had a solid reading on our level 1, but we can take it all today.
I need to ask about the mid-game, because it's been a weakness from you guys all year long. I want to know, what's going wrong here? Is it communication? Is it the fact that they're scared because it is a weakness? What's the problem here?
No, it's just, I mean, mid-game is extremely complex, and there are a lot of steps to it, and we work sometimes on some step that we have to learn, and sometimes we forget other steps, and I think we improved gradually during the whole year, but the problem is that I think our mid-game got a lot better, but now we are also playing against a lot of teams that are also a lot better. Yeah, it's one step at a time, and today, for example, it was really good. The problem is, if you do one misstep, if you do one random Baron, for example, you just lose against a team like FPX, and we are getting heavily punished, but we are also learning pretty fast.
What is the key here against FPX today? Because you had the game last time. What should you do and what will you tell them to just win the game this time and not make the same mistakes again?
I think we had to pressure a bit more our winning side in the mid game, and it's more about how we want to fight. The Chinese are really ready to fight, and we need to have a solid plan on how we're going to turn on them. When we are starting the Baron, we need to make sure that we have clear roles, who is going to turn, who is going to flank. And here, for example, this game we had way better. The game against J team, we had a way better understanding of how we wanted to team fight. We wanted to team fight slowly, take like maybe sometimes go 2 times, wait to make the cooldown. And so that's something we need to discuss, and that's basically some kind of discussions that we implemented recently.
All right, we'll see how it goes later today. Now, you know these guys more than anyone. What did you tell them coming in today so they would be proud of their performance, regardless of what happens?
And I told them that they improved a lot in the past 10 days. That I trust them, even if sometimes people don't always trust them outside of the team. I trust them and I saw the improvement, but we are still not there yet. They know what they have to do. We have to be responsible for each other. Everyone has to be responsible for himself to take decision, be really decisive on our calls, because one mistake and the game are over, but we just have to play our game, and they did it today.
And I wish you good luck on that today. Thank you very much, Duke. We're going to take a short break and we'll come back in a few minutes for the 3rd game of the day.
Kled now, Pocket Pistol takes him away. Conqueror still taxed, he's still healing up to a certain degree. Trying to step forward, the barrel hits.
Now the question is, can J-Team stop this? They're going on!
A lot of damage, they're just trying to knock Humanoid out, the flash out to safety, but it will not be enough. That is the shutdown. Damage is coming in.
He's got back up!
There it is, 2 into the wall! And Vizicsacsi sends a message to J-Team. They want to continue the fight. The feathers are pulled back. Humanoid's in trouble, the Kled goes in.
Humanoid's in trouble now too.
Safety. Goes over, trying to get a little bit more. The dismount comes in. Humanoid, there does so much damage. Humanoid! Be careful, that's going to be the petrifying gaze. He's looking for one more. Vizicsacsi just going to bounce right in. Lands it on 2, and Splyce now trying to clean up the fight, desperate to get something back. But both the carries know. One going down. FoFo is dead. It's all eyes on Lilv, but it's just not going to be enough. Xayah, the pull through the feathers. He cannot do it in the end. Splyce will tie themselves up with J-Team 2-2, and Splyce are looking to get out of this group.